The ending. Let's talk about endings just a little bit here, because some of us often don't realize when there's an ending, and some of us have it smacked right upside the head. Yeah, that's the end of that. Could be a job, it could be a relationship. In both instances, however, it could be that you really don't understand your feelings behind and around the ending. You see, certain things have been documented, if you will, that happen to us when an ending is either we're in it or it's approaching. And they're the D words, as I like to call them. We become disenchanted with what it is we are doing or who it is we are being or being with. We become somewhat disoriented at the same time. Life takes on this fuzzy-muzzy, like, I know about going through the motions because I've done it 100 times before, but it doesn't feel at all like it did before. It's fuzzy. I'm disoriented. I really don't want to get out of bed this morning because I really am not sure what I'm going to be doing with my day. The disenchantment comes when we just suddenly realize that fundamentally we no longer are in alignment with that way of being. And we're disenchanted. We just don't kind of like it anymore, don't respect it anymore. And we don't respect ourselves in that process, if you will. So disoriented, disenchanted, and it very often leads to being disorganized. We suddenly find piles of paper, and we've been notoriously known for a neat person, maybe a little OCD in some regard. That person has just always had it right on the money. And suddenly we're forgetting things, or we're missing appointments, or, we are not doing the mundane daily tasks in the way that we used to do them. And we begin to wonder what is going on. And we say to ourselves, couple of things. One, what is going on? Two, I don't care what's going on, I'm going to plow right through this because it is just too uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. When in fact, you have already begun the transition, the change. Willing or not, the change has started. The end is there. And so we have a choice. We can hang on to that ending because we know what that's all about. That's kind of like the evil or the fear that we already know. And so are we going to trade that in for the big transition? What's my payoff in the big transition? Wow, transition, that sounds pretty messy to me. I think I'll just stay here and wander around in my fuzzy disorientation, disenchantment. Because while it feels funny and it's uncomfortable, at least I know essentially where I'm going. Where I'm going, yeah, you do. You're going right back in that same spiral, over and over. So the question then becomes, are you willing to make a transition? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to go for the mystery of it? And some of us say, no. And some of us say, well, maybe could you tell me a little bit more about that mystery? No, I really can't tell you about the mystery because I don't know what it is. I can tell you about some ideas for navigating that transition or that mystery. And one of them is, don't be rushing to the other end, as we said last week, of the hallway, waiting for that window to open. No, it's all in the transition. It's all in the moving down the hallway. We talked about that last week a little bit. It's about how do I do that? And how do I get there in a spiritually informed way? You see, very often when we are on the brink of transition, we go right to ego. And we want to know, how am I going to get through it? What's it going to look like? What box can I shove it in? Who, what, when, where, and why? Tell me and I'll be fine. It doesn't work like that. And most of us know that, but boy, we resist. We go right into that who, what, where, when. So you see, change, we can't ever get away from change. So my question to you is, knowing that, because change is always there, how best are you going to get through this change process? One of the greatest stories of change, of transition, if you will, hero's journey, is in Exodus, when the Israelites are messing around in Egypt. Egypt was the savior to begin with. Egypt gave them jobs and plenty. And then it was time to leave Egypt in a big way. And so we heard and we read in Exodus this great exodus, if you will, from Egypt to, quote, the promised land, led by Moses. And many of you are very familiar with this story, and many of you say, yeah, I got the drift of it, but I don't really, I don't use it. I could probably tell you a little, give you a little outline. I'm going to encourage you to go to Exodus, and you read that story. And it is an amazing story that is your own story. If you can track with it, have you opened the Bible to Exodus? Yeah, okay, now she's getting really in on me, isn't she? Some of you will say, yeah, I did, I'm pretty familiar with it, and others will say, I'm not sure where it is in the Bible. Is it Old Testament, New Testament? Is it in the front, is it in the middle, is it in the back? Find it. I'm not telling you. But I am saying to you, I'm giving you a hint. Big hint right there. I am requesting, you have to watch me, I get a little pushy, that you go to Exodus and you read that story. And then say to yourself, after you've read that story and you've plowed through the names of places and people and you go, oh geez, what is that? That you will understand how that story is your story, is our story. It is amazing. And we will delve into Exodus at great length later on in this Lenten season. And that brings me back to the very beginning of what I want to stress with you. And that's the Lenten season. It is a great time for preparation, for transformation. It is a time of transition. We are tracking right now, biblically, metaphysically, humanly, and spiritually, with an ending, a transition, change, and a new beginning that's coming. And that's what we believe Easter is all about. New beginning, resurrection. Now, there are those of you that will say, it was crucifixion and resurrection, so don't get too carried away. Well, yes, what do you think transition is all about? It's crucifixion, it's dying to old ways of being and thinking. And the Lenten season is 40 beautiful days, if you should avail yourself of it, to work with how to navigate through this time of transition. And the big part of it, folks, is to be willing to do the navigation. All right, I'm going to give you 3 parts to what I consider to be navigation. And the first part is the noise level has to be turned down, if not off. And where does that noise come from? Guess. You, me, the outside world. Because for some of us, it is just a whole lot easier to deal with life's noise. You know why? Because it's a form of denial. You get into the noise, and what is another form of noise? Blame. Oh, I'm blaming my circumstances for the predicament I'm in. I'm blaming her or him. But what you're doing is you're adding to the noise factor. That whole ratcheting up of the noise that goes on here in what we all know as monkey mind. And it gets louder and louder. And suddenly, we are so involved with the noise that we are not navigating anything. The noise, in fact, is navigating us. Go here, go there, think this, do that, do that. So I'm asking you for part 1 is to cut down on the noise. That's another beautiful part of the Lenten season. If you pray and meditate each day, if you take this simple booklet that's published by Unity and just read it day by day, for at least that moment in time, you have cut down on the noise. So that is number 1. And number 2 is to let's take a look at what you see in this transition that's an obstacle. Because very often the obstacles, my friend, are truly the blessing. And some of us do not see that. We see an obstacle. And if you choose to change or just alter that picture slightly and look for the teacher, look for the blessing in the obstacle. Don't just simply set yourself up for out there, inside, it's them, it's me. No, we're all in this together, right? We're all connected. When you have a person or a situation that right now is an obstacle in your life, do you have the willingness? I know you have the ability because of the Christ itself. But do you have the willingness to take a look at that obstacle, whether it be an individual or a situation, and say, okay, I am willing to at least look for the blessing. I didn't say you had to see the blessing or that you could even see the blessing. I said, are you willing? And that is the crux of all three of these, if you will. Are you willing to look at those obstacles and see them as blessings, and then see if you can utilize them in navigating through that transition period? And number three, and this is one that's very difficult for some people, I'm going to ask you to try and live your life unrehearsed. Well, what's wrong with preparation? Here's how I view it. Preparation is a skill. Living your life unrehearsed, meaning from your heart, no preparation needed, you take life as it is a way of being, is a way of life. It's a philosophy. I'm not saying don't be prepared. Some of you will leave here and you will either send me an email, which I do get, or you will phone me and say, you said don't be prepared. Now, if you heard me say don't be prepared, I would say you need to sit up closer, okay? I did not say that. I said preparation is a skill, a very important skill. If you're navigating transition, one of the great ways to navigate it is the word I like to call organic. And again, some of you will say, oh, but you know, that you could get yourself in all kinds of trouble by being organic. By organic, I mean coming from your heart. I mean not having to have all the answers, not knowing how to fill in all the blanks. It is a wonderful way to live. It's a way that you live from your inner self, not your outer self. You see, when we're preparing, we prepare generally outside of ourselves. That's the wonderful paradox in the Lenten season. It's a prep time, but it's a prep time where you prep or prepare from your inner self. And some of you will say, okay, and I will say to you, yes, you are right. That takes faith. That takes trust in the God of your being. Do you have faith and trust in the God of your being? Are you willing to show up to life unrehearsed? To show up unrehearsed but firm in your truth, knowing who you are and what you believe. You see, unrehearsed doesn't mean, you know, we throw it all to the wind. Or as I hear some people say, oh, give it to God and he'll take good care of it. That's not what this is about. This is about coming from a place of authenticity, of truth, and of knowing what you believe. And for some of us, we haven't really ever delved deep into what we believe. When I had the talk title for this week, it's Dive Deep or Deep Dive. What was it, Jan? Dive Deep. Yes. Meaning go deeper into what you believe. Go deeper. A short story that I have from my youth. Yes, I had a youth. When we were in school, junior high school, I might add, that tells you how long ago that was, we were required to take Red Cross certification training. We had pools, regulation of pools. Swimming was a big deal where I came from because we lived on a river, a part of it. And so one of the certifications was to dive for a big black plastic ring that was down on top of the drain at the bottom of the deep end of the pool. Some of you are shaking your heads like you know what I'm talking about. And I can remember for my certification that I had to go get the ring and then come back to the top with the ring. And I remember on the third try of not getting the ring and gasping for air as I reached the surface, saying out loud to my coach, I can't do this. And the coach said to me, come up here. And we got on the side of the pool. And she said, dive deep. And I said, that's what I'm doing. And she said, no, you're not. You're anticipating that you won't get back to the top. You are not going deeper into the water and into your own resources so that you can come up higher. You can see the metaphysics and the metaphor. I didn't get either one at the time. All I got was dive deeper. And I thought that she was being really kind of almost pushy because I thought that's what I had been doing. And then I got that word early on in life called willingness. Are you willing to at least consider what she has to say? That there might be some validity to it? And for me, the word willingness always was my break word. Nobody was pushing me, nobody was forcing me. It was me that was being willing to try it on for size. So yes, I did finally get the ring. I don't know, it must have been 5 or 6 times later, but I got it and certified. But I'll always remember, dive deep and be willing. Just be willing. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Are you willing in this time of transition that we all have before us as a community and you as individuals? Are you willing to dive deeper into what you believe and who you are? Because that, my friends, will sustain you as you work through this time of navigating, of saying goodbye because you don't want to go back to an old way of being. And you are now in the middle of this transition. So going deep is a way for you to find out where you are, to take that shot at willingness in what you believe, and knowing